an executive head at Olia Insurance Solutions, a mentor at the Lloyd's Lab, a guest lecturer at Wits, and the current president of the Insurance Institute of Gauteng. My guest here today can definitely be referred to as a rising leader in the insurance industry. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Bukhosi Khumalo. Hi, Bukhosi.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic.
Thank you for making the time to have a chat with us today. I know that your schedule is quite busy. So, speaking of a busy schedule, I would like to find out how you're able to balance everything. I mean, after everything I've just mentioned, you're also a husband and father of two. So, how do you balance between your professional career and your personal life?
It's a question that I actually get a lot from people. And I always jokingly say, ask my wife. She's really a super supportive person. And I think the first time we met actually was when I was the president of the Actuarial Science and Insurance Society. And at that point in time, I guess I already knew that at some point in time, I'll keep doing things that give back to the industry. And I think for me, it's really a lot of the support that comes from her. But I also always say, you need a great support system. And for me, that support system comes from home. It comes from the work that I do, but it also comes from the industry. And as a result of that, as challenging as it is, somehow I'm able to do it. And ultimately, it's a lot of dedication because you put in a lot more hours rather than what an average person would in a day. And everything, I think, for me, really comes from the heart. It's the passion.
I love that. And speaking of family, I would like us to just go all the way back to your childhood. You speak very fondly of your grandmother and your mother playing a key role in your upbringing. So, what was your upbringing life like, and what type of values did they instill in you growing up?
Yeah, childhood was, when you're younger, you think you're the only person who has that sort of childhood. But I was brought up by my grandparents, like millions others, I think, around South Africa as well as the continent. And my grandmother, I guess, spent a lot more time with us. And I think for me, it was always about what she taught us regarding always doing things for others. And for me, I think that's what really led me into ultimately doing things similar to the IIG. So it was always about being selfless in what you do, because doing things for yourself is a natural thing, but doing things for others is a different, I guess, sort of thing. And in terms of my mother traveled to the US, spent a couple of years there. She traveled a lot. I think ultimately it was to look after the needs that I had when I lived with my grandmother. But one of the things that really stood out for me was the fact that she always said she wanted me to travel the world and see things from a different perspective. And so from a very young age, I always knew I wanted to spend some time in a few different countries. I haven't lived elsewhere except for SADC. But a few travels that I do, I guess, allow me to change a bit of perspective about a lot of what I've seen, I guess, in my childhood as well as growing up. So I always say that traveling kills ignorance, and I absolutely love it. Now I get why she wanted me to travel.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what are some of the values that they taught you growing up that you would like to pass on to your children? If there's one thing maybe you'd like to pass on as well.
So there's a number of things, and I'll probably touch some of the top ones. The first one is the value of family. And in terms of the family, and this is what I also tell people, probably 99% of people see me at my happiest. I've been called all sorts of things. I naturally have a lot of energy. So I've been called Energy Bunny. I've been called the CEO, Chief Excitement Officer. But the truth is, when I'm home, sometimes you are extremely, extremely exhausted. So my family gets to see me on both my best days and the days when things are not moving very well, but they still decide to support me. So for me, I think family is one value that's really important. The second one for me is about authenticity. In a world where today people want to be other people, I believe that being authentic is a critical part of your being, because no one else is like you. That's why we have different sets of fingerprints. When you look at twins, their iris are not the same, their fingerprints are not the same. So there's only one you, and authenticity then becomes important in how you ultimately will live your life and how you package yourself, I guess, around other people. And I'll say then the last one is probably one of my favorite. It's about empathy. Empathy for people, I guess, when you live around them, but also empathy as leaders. I don't believe that we have enough people that are leading using empathy, because empathy is about putting yourself in another person's shoes. And when you do that, ultimately, people will naturally be inclined to you because you're putting yourself in their position. And a lot of this, it's amazing how you get taught these values from the time you are a child, and ultimately it becomes part of the being that you ultimately are.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very important. What was your whole idea of what you wanted to be when you grew up? Because a lot of young people struggle with making that decision. So, when you were maybe in high school, what did you want to be when you outside high school, like after?
Um, so I'll give you two answers to that. So when I was very young, I actually came across a video about 3 months ago of when I think I was 5 years old, and I wanted to be in the army. And the reason why I wanted to be in the army was I had an uncle who was also in the army. And each time I asked him, and I don't know where I used to get these questions as a kid, but what do you love most about what you do? And he said that it's because we are there to protect people. And in June sometime, I got the opportunity to sit with an army general on the African continent. And he said something interesting to me when you're sitting at the dinner table. He said, because do you know that you and I do the same thing? And I was quite taken aback. And now I was curious to find out what's the similarity between the army and insurance. And he said that when all else fails, the army is called in. And I think you'll remember from COVID days. And well, when there's issues of disorder, you call everyone else, and when all else fails, you call the army. So that's the one thing. And then you say the second thing is we are there to protect people. And as insurance people, that's exactly what you do. And it made me think about that childhood dream that I ultimately had, and how it's actually then manifested. I might not be in the army today, but I still do the same thing from a different angle. And regarding the protection of people, that's exactly what we do. We try and give as much as possible people peace of mind. And secondly, when you've locked your doors, when you've locked your car, when you've put on alarm and all else fails, then as insurers, we then come in. And then when I was a bit older, I then wanted to be an architect. I'm big on issues of aesthetics. I loved drawing and yeah, everything in between. And so my mom consulted some of her friends about what the next coolest thing would actually be. And they said, have him study risk management. And so studied risk management, worked in risk management. And since I was 19 and here I am, it's been an exciting journey. I will choose this again.
Wow. What makes you passionate about mentorship, mentoring young people?
There's a good story for that. I was sitting one time with one of the CEOs of a broking company in the industry. And I shared with him what I believed was one of the coolest ideas within the insurance industry. And then he said, oh, well, okay. We tried that in, I think he said 2003 or something. It even included him working with some people within government. And whilst some people may look at it and be disheartened, for me it was an exciting phase, because then that means I am not starting from scratch. So people who are mentors have seen stuff that you haven't seen. And sometimes people want to wait to be mentors a lot later in their lives. I often say that someone else knows something that you don't. So at every opportunity that I get, I like to exchange ideas and guide people wherever they are. And naturally, people will always ask you to be mentors. And how I've done it now, because mentorship takes up a lot of time, I prefer to just have coffees. If you have this idea that you have or want to bounce something off, 30 minutes, we interact and we do it. And it's for me really, because for me to be where I am, a lot of people have given time off their diaries for me to be where I am. And as a result, I want to pay it forward and do for them that that which other people also did for me to be where I am today.
No, that's incredible. And thank you so much for the work that you do. You are also a guest lecturer at Wits. So how did that come about?
So lecturing was one of my plans for retirement. I know I'm still very young to retire, but in
Very.
my fourth year, my favorite lecturer was someone who had worked in South Africa, Zambia, Nigeria, the US, as well as London. And the way he lectured was different because academia is important, but there's something that practicality really brings to the fore. So when I was in fourth year, I then made a decision that at 40, I was going to start lecturing so that I give the practical aspect of what we do as an industry. But I was then fortunate at 29 Wits came knocking. I knew some people that I shared with that I was passionate about. Issues of giving back, and I then got the opportunity to be a guest lecturer. And what I also enjoy really about guest lecturing is sometimes people think you're there to only instruct and give people knowledge, but at the end I have a slide that says questions and contributions, and the reason being I've also learned from the students as much as I also give. They ask questions that, because as an industry, ultimately sometimes you then get conditioned to think in a certain way. But someone who's outside the industry, who's never seen what we see, will ask a question that will challenge your thinking and what we believe to be the status quo. So I absolutely love it. The intention was to give back, but I also get as much as I give.
Okay, yeah, no, that's very important. What do you think can be done in terms of educating young people more about the insurance industry? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of young people are not really aware of insurance. The first thing someone thinks about when they think of insurance is being a salesperson or a telemarketer. So, what do you think are some of the ways where young people can be more exposed into what the insurance industry has to offer?
So I'll probably start at the top. You have institutes, and I have the privilege this year of being the president of the Insurance Institute of Gauteng. And what bodies like that, in my mind, should actually be investing in, which we do. And I also had the opportunity in the past 2 weeks to visit some of our counterparts, is to work together in. We have a program that we call the academic program, and I always say the idea is to capture their hearts and minds before they even know where they need to go. Because generally we want to target people in university, but in university, generally people have sort of made a decision of what they want to do. And so it's to capture them when they are still very young, tell them about what insurance really is, because there's lots of misconceptions about what people think insurance is. Insurance is a lot broader. And one of the slides I like sharing with the students as I interact with them is issues of space shuttles, the tallest buildings in the world. A lot of that investment will not actually happen when there's no insurance. So it's to paint insurance in the correct light, as opposed to the misconceptions that a lot of people currently have about it. It's a fantastic industry.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. And what do you think keeps people in the industry? Because one thing, they might not know everything about insurance, but what I've realized that once they get in, they don't want to leave. We have people that have been in the industry for maybe 40 years and have loved it. So what do you think is that one thing or two things that keep people once they enter through the door?
So you mentioned 40 years. We once gave out an award at one of our annual dinners for 55 years service. And I
Wow.
think last year we actually also did 60 years. So people do stay in the industry for a long, long time. A lot of people say that they fell into the industry. I'm on a mission to change that. It's fine if they fell, but a lot of them really have, well, I'll guess most people have stayed in the industry. In my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, it's understanding the value of what we do. I don't wake up in the morning just to go and do a job. It's about what it's doing for the end user, for the customer, for the client, which is a word I prefer to use. So it's having a full scope of understanding what I do as an individual, as a broker, as a reinsurer, as a UMA, wherever you sit, really contributes to the end user. And in our business, one of the things we've done is we are bringing people who we typically call back office to the fore to give them a bit of interaction with the client, because what we believe in is that what we do begins and ends with people.
Yeah, that's very true. So we spoke a lot about you being involved in mentorships and helping young people. But I'd like to know your side. Who has played a pivotal role in mentoring you, be it in the industry, in the insurance industry? Have you had mentors that have paved the way for you in the industry?
A lot of people. It's a lot of people. I'll mention a few, and I guess maybe I'll mention the more senior ones. I'll probably start with Junior Ngulube. He's also an ex-president of the IIG. I think he was president 2001, 2002. One of the biggest things that he shared with me, and he even wrote an article, well, a company wrote an article about it, about the fact that if you want to be in leadership, sometimes it's better to be a generalist, have an idea of different parts of your business and your ecosystem. Some people say that CEOs are chief ecosystem officers, because you need to understand the whole spectrum, ultimately, of what your business does. And because of the journey he walked, he is actually someone who graduated with a master's in agriculture, went into insurance ultimately, did a bit of HR, did a bit of IT, did strategy, and ultimately became the CEO of Munich Re Africa. Massive role within the insurance industry. And that's because it did not go and become a specialist. So that, for me, I think is one of the biggest things that Junior ultimately taught me. The second person will be Peter Olliott. I think that's the guy I told you about earlier that said he did something a lot earlier. One of the biggest things, and he's told me this 2 or 3 times when we've met, that what you know is important, but who you know is crucial. Because you see a lot of smart people who are very knowledgeable out there, brilliant people that you could put in front of whoever, and you know that they will excel. But you need that extra layer of a network of people that you know for you to get that catapult. And sometimes it's not about just progression within your career. It's about the ability to execute very well in terms of what you ultimately will do. And the last person will be Jeff Kaufman. I met Jeff, I was still very young. And I believe that he taught me a lot about empathy, looking after people's interests. He wears his heart on his sleeve, big time. And I realized that whilst in the business, he was not chief executive officer, I saw a lot in him that I wanted to carry within my leadership journey, which is looking after people, being kind, because it doesn't cost anything, and doing the right things. So he always used to say that whatever decision you make, easy or not so easy, always be fair. Actually, I must mention this. My granddad he's late now, but he was a very powerful person. And I think I always tell people, I don't remember him saying to me that, well done for doing what you did. I enjoyed school, absolutely loved it. I don't remember him hugging me, but I knew that the man loved me. But one of the biggest things he ever shared with us, or rather we learned a lot of it through observing, was hard work pays. People don't enjoy hard work. I absolutely love hard work. And the nice thing, I guess, with technology now is you can mix hard work and technology or efficiencies, and you will ultimately become brilliant. So I would say those are 4 people that have really had an impact within the person that I've become today, amongst a lot of other people. I think I
I'm
must
sure there
add.
are lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely agree when you say you love hard work. I think it shows with everything that you do, all the projects that you are involved in. One being the current president of the Insurance Institute of Gauteng. So why did you apply, I guess, to become the president? What interested you?
I think in the introduction, I likely shared about what my grandmother used to say, that doing things for yourself is natural, but doing things for others sometimes can be challenging. but it's got longevity, it's got sustainability. It touches a different point. So from the time we were very young, we always looked for something else to do outside school, outside work. It was always about how else can I serve people. And so when I was 19, I was then introduced to the Actuarial Science and Insurance Society, where I became a council member. I think I was 22 or 23. I became president, and I think I was the youngest president at that point in time. And all that build up in my mind was always ingrained with how else can I help the next person. And I believe that all those experiences ultimately led me to lead an organization today that has 18,000 people and one of the largest actually in the world in terms of regional institutes. So it was out of childhood memories, something that ended up growing in me to ultimately want to always grow others and do something to empower someone else.
I like that. And what are some of the projects that you've been doing whilst being the president of the IIG?
Good Lord.
If you can summarize.
It's a lot. So in March, I was struggling to, because a lot of people ask you, what does the IIG do? We do a lot, and I couldn't summarize it. And I came up with a way to summarize it. In my mind, the growth within the insurance industry has 4 stages. So I call them quadrants. The first quadrant is people who have no clue about what insurance is, hold a grade 12 certificate, or a lot younger. And we have programs that speak to that. So the academic program, some of the IIG class of programs. And the idea, like I said, is to capture their hearts and minds into seeing what an amazing career insurance is. And the second quadrant is for people, typically the sweet spot is between 5 and 8 years within the industry. We have the class of, we have the Roots and Wings, we have the Roots and Wings International. There's lots of leadership training, there's lots of networking, there's lots of mentoring as well that happens within that quadrant. The third quadrant is for people who are in mid-management, who are almost becoming executives. And then the fourth quadrant ultimately is for your C-suite and people who are almost getting into retirement. And I then thought of what I call the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension then allows all these quadrants to interact. But within the fifth dimension, we then interact with people who are not within the insurance industry, people who are service providers to the industry. So it's really a whole ecosystem within the insurance industry where we allow people to, I like to say this, engage, connect, and grow.
And link up.
Hashtag link up.
Hashtag link up.
Yeah.
And so your journey is coming to an end as president in November. But what are some of the projects that you would like to still continue with? Because as much as the journey as the president is coming to an end, but the work is only getting started, I believe. So what are some of the things you'd like to continue and see through?
So when you look at the hashtag that I chose for the year, it's hashtag link up. And for me, it's limitless. And a lot of it really is about linking people with people. You will do this program, that program, that program, but it's really about linking people with people. And so things like the class of the mentorship programs, the academic program, those are things that I would still love to be involved in some way, shape, or form, even if it means just pulling other people in or as a sponsor. There's various ways in which I still want to participate. And the reason being, I see the value that it ultimately brings. So within the next few weeks, we're going to start getting speeches, graduations, we'll be on judging panels. And at that time, you get the experience of seeing the fruits of a lot of what we're doing. You see people grow from one person into the other person that they were. And I had a guy, it was in June, who he locked me up from behind like he was hugging me. And I was wondering, who's this person? I looked at his face and I realized he's familiar, but I can't place him. And he said to me, you and Brother Tabo did an amazing program, which was the Roots and Wings, at a point where I wasn't sure whether I wanted to stay in the industry or not. And after I went through that program, he knew he was in the right space. And for me, listening to those stories, and there's many more that are out there, is really what gives a lot of purpose in what we do. I think outside being IIG president, but just as a human being.
And as you're about to hand over to the next president, what advice would you give the next president? Just in terms of everything that you've experienced. So, what advice would you give to the next person?
People don't always tell the truth about how challenging it is. Um, you know it's hard, but you cannot imagine how hard it is. Um, as hard and as challenging as it is, bigger than those challenges is the satisfaction that really comes with it. And understanding why you do it gives you fuel. I was chatting to Togozile about 2 weeks ago, who's the IISA president. And we're like, sometimes you tell yourself, I am finished, I am tired, and something comes up, and somehow you scratch for energy. I don't know where it comes from, but you suddenly get it. So it's challenging, but it's also extremely satisfying. What we do as an institute, I believe, really transforms lives. I've seen it. Some people sometimes will say, you just say it for saying it, but we've seen it. We've gotten feedback from businesses as well. And you always take notes as you meet people, and sometimes then take notes at the end when you're in the judging panel. The difference that you see, the communities that we also link up ourselves to. So it's, for me, it's really a whole ecosystem, that what you're walking into, Vilmin, if you're listening to me, is going to be an amazing journey. And the support system around you, council, the business, the industry, is really going to be one of the best reasons why you'll succeed.
Yeah, and I hope that she'll watch this as well and take on that advice. You've won a lot of awards in your career. You've won a lot of awards when you were still working at Marsh, and in 2023 you won the AIO Young Professionals Next Gen Award. So, what does winning awards like that mean to you?
I believe it gives a rubber stamp and validates why I am passionate and enjoy what I do as much as I do. We work very hard, and I think sometimes small things like that encourage you to say you're on the right track. Really keep going. And I think it's important to say I wasn't doing what I was doing for awards, but they are a good and nice booster. And like I said, a validation that what I'm doing, what the IIG is doing, what the industry is doing is really, really important work.
Indeed, indeed it is. So, what advice would you give to a young person who's maybe going to watch this or who's maybe considering a career in insurance? What advice would you give to them? Also, those that are just looking up to you, that have maybe seen you somewhere at events and would like to become what you have become, basically, or rather see themselves where you've been, as one day being the president, as one day winning the awards. What advice would you give to them?
For those who are not yet in the industry, just do it. It's an amazing industry. I would say that the insurance industry, for me, does a lot. And some of the biggest ticket items is, number one, obviously protecting people, giving them some peace of mind. And the second thing in my head would be the fact that it fosters innovation. It encourages people to also invest. Some people wouldn't take the risks that they would without someone in the form of an insurance company saying, if anything goes wrong, here is a check. I will protect you. So we foster innovation. And lastly, amongst a lot of things, is we create and protect employment, which for me on the African continent is a very, very big thing. If a company goes through challenges, our role is there to pick up that company and make sure that they are indemnified, I think, which is really putting people and a business to the position that they were immediately before the loss. I can talk the whole day about business interruption and what it does, but this is probably ultimately not the forum. And then for people within the industry, I would say two things. the first one, and it's cliche, your network is your net worth. I've had the privilege of knowing a lot of people in my young career, and I continue to meet a lot of people. And Peter was right. What you know is important. We have a lot of smart people, but who you know is, for me, even more crucial. And the second thing is, one of my mentors once told me that, because when people ask me how my life has shot up so quickly, and I always say that I've been fortunate, and I still believe that I'm fortunate. But he always says, do not discredit hard work, because people will think they can sit and be lucky. So I work extremely hard. I work very hard. I work very long hours, but it's not daunting. It's, again, really comes from a point of passion, a point of understanding the end goal, a point of understanding why I do ultimately what I do. So if you mix your networks and you mix ultimately your hard work and drive and passion, I believe that amazing things will definitely happen.
Your network is your net worth.
Yes.
I like that. That's a
Yeah.
very good one. We are drawing closer to the end of the interview, but I cannot let you go away before I ask you some rapid fire questions. Now, rapid fire questions are questions that I'm going to ask you, and you can't take too long to think about it. You have to give me the first answer that comes to mind.
Do you know that I'm a serial planner? So
Not today. Not today.
Oh, good
Okay.
Lord.
Are you ready? Yes.
What was that, the first question?
No.
Oh, okay.
The first question is, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
What is your dream holiday destination?
Italy, Sicily.
What is your favorite food?
I don't have a favorite food. I like eating amazing food. When I was younger, it was a burger, but now I just enjoy good food.
What is your favorite song? Could be of all time or currently at the moment.
Oh, good Lord. I don't listen to enough music. It's taking too long to think. I'm gonna love you like I'm gonna lose. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Inspiration for my wife.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is, what has been your most embarrassing moment or story
Oh,
that you can share?
just, yeah. As a young person, there's a few. But I remember this one day, we were singing in choir, and I think for people who enjoy choir, there's a song Hallelujah. And our choir master used to do this thing where he would, at the end of the song, like jump just to
Okay.
give us some energy. And so sometimes what we used to do is, whilst we're singing, we would like imitate him. And this one day I was standing below a window, one of those windows that open like that. And at that time, I then jumped and I hit myself. So I've naturally always had a lot of energy. And it was because I gained off a lot of energy on that day. It was embarrassing. People spoke about it for weeks.
Oh.
Phew. You just reminded me of something, but yeah,
But
that
then
was.
but then you redeemed yourself by becoming the president of the IRG. So
Well, that's a good
it's
one.
all good.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So my final question for you is, what's next for Bukhosi? I mean, you've done amazing things in the insurance industry. You've won a lot of awards. So where to from here? What next?
I'll say watch the space.
Oh.
In about 2-3 months' time, you will hear about the next, and after that, another next, and another next. But I think all I'm going to say is I will continue to #link up people. This year has been important for me because outside choosing the theme, I've lived by it. But ultimately, our industry really is about linking up people. And that for me is my life's mission. And anything that I do, when you say what's the next, it's always going to be involving linking up people, because everything that we do, in my mind, begins and ends with people.
I like that. Watch the space. We will definitely be watching the space. Bukhosi, thank you so much for your time
No,
today.
thank you.
We wish you the absolute best on all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.